welcome to another podcast where we dive into real life challenges, growth, and how we can shift our mindset to better navigate the ups and downs of life. I'm your host, Sarah Mason, and today we're exploring a concept that many of us has encountered but may not fully understand. The idea that hard times create easy times and how these cycles shape our lives. We're going to talk about how these cycles create the patterns of weakness and how we can break them, not just for ourselves, but for our families, our kids, and the generations that come after us. You may have heard the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But have you ever wondered if that's always true? What if over time, the hard times we experience and even those we put on ourselves actually end up creating cycles of weakness that we actually pass on? In today's episode, we're going to explore how these cycles work and how you can become more aware of them in your own life, especially if you've noticed these patterns in your upbringing or in your family. I'm going to share some real life examples and tools so you can get a bit curious about the way you're responding to life's challenges, and more importantly, how you can break free from those cycles to build a stronger future. So let's think about your childhood for a moment. What were you taught about struggle? About overcoming challenges? Growing up, many of us were told, don't show weakness, or push through no matter what, or if you're crying, I'm going to give you something to really cry about, so wipe the tears and keep moving. And for some, this message was so amplified. If you're not struggling, you're not growing. The problem with this belief is that when we only know hard times, we don't learn how to handle the easy times. We're constantly pushing, always looking for the next challenge, thinking it's the only way to be worthy or even successful. But here's the thing. When we live in a constant struggle, our resilience can start to break down. And instead of feeling empowered, we end up feeling exhausted, defeated, and yes, unfortunately, weak. In fact, hardship can actually build weakness, especially if we never give ourselves the chance to pause, to reflect, and to actually recover. And I noticed that a lot of women have a tendency to doing that. More so, I see this with my clients, especially if they're juggling anything between a family, a business, the children, studies, and all the things that fit in between that. Now, within this cycle, many people are stuck in, and often they don't even realize it. So let's just take a look on how this plays out in real life. I've worked with many clients who grew up in environments where struggle was glorified, where parents were always striving, working nonstop, or fighting against one adversity after another. These clients carry the same mindset into their adult lives, and often their children end up doing the same. The issue when the cycle repeats itself, the hard times don't create strong people. They create people who don't know how to experience the easy times. Just let that simmer for a minute. So the hard times don't create stronger people. They create people who don't know how to experience the easy times. They never learn how to relax or recharge or even enjoy life without the pressures of constant challenges. And what's even worse, this pattern gets passed down from generation to generation. So what can we do about it, and how can we break this cycle? Well, here's the first step, is to get curious about your own life and the patterns that you've inherited. Think about it. Were you taught that life is meant to be hard? Or were you taught that the rest is equally important as hard work? Maybe you've heard phrases like, you have to earn your rest, or your life won't give you a break. Or if that's the case, it's time to ask yourself, do I really want to keep repeating this cycle? Let's look at a tool that's simple but very powerful, some awareness through reflection. When was the last time you paused and reflected on your responses to life's difficulties? Are you always in the fight-flight mode? Do you know what it feels like to actually rest, to enjoy things, or to simply breathe and not feel guilty about it? I'm one to put my hand up and say, No, I don't know because every time I rested, my brain was going 100 miles an hour, overthinking of what I haven't done, what I must do. And if I don't get it, time will never come back to me because, hey, time owes us nothing, right? And time is just moving, and I will lose time and I won't get to things. So, this is a self indulgent attitude because working hard and hard and hard hasn't taught us how to just relax. So, one way to break free from this cycle, and hey, another person here speaking in this podcast, an example of it. Sometimes I struggle doing this at times, but here it goes anyway. There's something called self inquiry technique. I love to use it in my work and with my clients. Obviously, I've used it many times with myself, and I try to implement it on a day to day basis. But what's the story I'm telling myself? That's the question. What's the story I'm telling myself? And it's a tool that you can use to start questioning those automatic beliefs about struggle and ease. Here's how it works. Whenever you catch yourself feeling overwhelmed or even pressured, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Am I telling myself that life should be this hard? Am I carrying old beliefs that make me feel like I'm not enough unless I'm constantly pushing? Hey, there's no shame in this because I've been there. God only knows that I sometimes even rotate in it if it's not monthly, because that's all I knew. So once you begin to question the story, you can actually begin to reframe it, which is the brilliant part. I'll give you an example of this. You might say, I'm allowed to work, I'm allowed to have ease in my life, I'm allowed to enjoy moments of calm. Resting does not make me weak, it makes me stronger. Another great strategy. If you don't want to be very direct with your mind and you're over analytical thinker, tap through it. I mean, EFT is a brilliant thing. Just go to your collarbone, and then bring it to your awareness by saying, I choose. So I'm choosing to allow myself to have an easy life. I'm choosing and I'm allowed to have moments of calm. I'm allowing myself to rest. And that doesn't show weakness. It just makes me stronger. And then just tap away while you're saying this. It just helps calm your nervous system down. And then you just find yourself at a lot more ease. So let's talk about how this obviously applies to our families. If you've noticed that these cycles in your life, you might see them playing out in your children or loved ones too. So what we can do to break the cycle for the next generation? Well, one thing you can do is model new behaviors. I'll give you an example, like taking breaks, embracing relaxation, teaching your children that they don't have to struggle all the time to succeed. A tool that you can use here is something called mindful communication. Meaning, when we engage with our children or loved ones, let's be mindful of the language that we use. Instead of saying things like, you have to work harder to succeed, try saying things like, success comes from balance, working hard, but also giving yourself time to rest and recharge. I mean, I would have wished my parents said something like that, right? But shifting how we talk about success and struggle, we can help the next generation build a healthier, more balanced mindset. So I want you to ask yourself, are you stuck in this cycle, hard times creating weak times? Are you pushing so hard that you're forgetting to take a step back and breathe? If you are, that's okay. It's normal to fall into these patterns, especially when you've been taught to live this way. But it's also within your own inner power to break this free. Just begin by becoming more aware of your thoughts, your own reactions, and the stories you've been telling yourself over and over. Once you do that, you can start to shift the narrative and create a life where hard times don't create weaknesses. They actually do create strength, resilience, and that balance that we all need and are calling for. Lastly, thank you for listening today. And I hope this episode has sparked a little curiosity into you about the patterns that you might be repeating and how you can break free from them. Take some time to reflect on your own journey and remember you're not alone in this. Lastly, if you really found this episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with someone who may benefit from hearing it. Remember, the journey towards balance and breaking old habits starts with curiosity. Until next time, take care and remember to embrace both the hard times and easy ones. They're all part of our story, from my heart to yours, as always.